All right. Back. It is Monday night. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to come hang out with me and listen in to all the wonderful questions that people ask and all the macro and all the fun stuff that we'll get into before we kick things off here. Went over a lot of stuff in the mastermind today. If you guys aren't part of that community, would love to have you there. Code is at the top here, beyondbroke.com. We have, pretty close to the same amount of people that we have listening on the lives on a lot of the platforms over there on Mastermind, pretty much every Monday. Somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people. Thank you, my wonderful wife with the tea in the R3 cup. Timely. So we'll go over a few things here, but not quite as in-depth as I did there. CME, trading 24/7, 365 now. Ripple Prime being the one to help settle all of that. I wonder what asset they're going to use. If you guys haven't seen my podcast with Mike Higgins, I would encourage you to go check that out. He was nice enough to come on and we broke down what Ripple Prime is, what they do, what a prime broker does in reality. And I think that would be super interesting for most people to really kind of understand, what the function of that corporation actually is. Ripple made some very strategic acquisitions last year in 2025. And I think, I don't know, it's a hard decision to decide which one was kind of a bigger deal, whether it was G Treasury or Ripple Prime, but that's really ends up being a 1 + 1 = 3 type deal. To be able to manage that many people's treasury and be able to, sweep those accounts into the products and solutions that they're building out over there for Ripple Prime, to be able to, leverage whatever you have on your balance sheet to be able to put that into other things while you're not using the money, I think is revolutionary. A lot of people that, pretty much everybody at this point, if you're using a bank account, if you're holding cash in those accounts over the weekend, holidays, or nighttime, you're not making any money. Right? You need that money there to be able to operate your business. But if you can sweep those accounts into something that generates revenue for you for whatever duration you're not using it, there's going to be a lot more economic benefit for you and your corporation. And for them to be doing that for, some of the largest corporations in the world, it's a pretty big deal. So, like I said, if you haven't watched that video or that interview, would encourage you to go check it out. Mike had some issues with this camera, which, is what it is, but the information's all there if you want to go check that out. Lots of other things. Michael Saylor selling off, taking a little profit on Bitcoin. I don't know if he was taking profit or not, but they have some pretty substantial payments that are due on the product that they've released here recently, like a 10 or 11% return that they are pretty much guaranteeing people if you're participating in that product. At some point, I think this may be the tip of the iceberg, kind of the canary in the coal mine, that they are going to have to sell off larger sums of Bitcoin in order to be able to meet the obligations that they've laid out for the people that have made investments in MicroStrategy through the different financial products and engineering that they've created. They've been very progressive on the stuff that they've done with at the market debt and other products that they've rolled out over time. I think that they've really kind of revolutionized what people can do with a DAT or a digital asset treasury company. And one of the reasons we went to Bitcoin Vegas, right? Like a lot of the financial products have happened first with Bitcoin, the ETFs being one of those. And we've seen many other products rolled out because that's where the liquidity is. But all of that can be re-engineered or reused for other digital assets, including XRP, XLM, HBAR, Solana, you name it. You could use similar strategies for that. So I don't know if Saylor's in trouble. Like I said, it's a very small amount in comparison to how much Bitcoin he's bought. It's like over 800,000 Bitcoin that they currently own. It's a large majority of the supply. And for them to sell off 32 Bitcoin really isn't that big a deal. But like I said, it may be the signal that larger sales are coming in order to be able to meet their obligations. So we're going to continue to watch that. You've got, we talked about, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but after Wednesday, I think it came out that the U.S. government had seized over $1 billion correlated with Iran in digital assets, the non-denominational. They really didn't disclose whether it was Tether or Solana or XRP or Bitcoin. They didn't really talk about which ones it was. I have a sneaking suspicion that it was more Tether, based on the $455 million that they had already frozen on that network. That's yet to be seen, though. Things in the macro are looking good for the reverse carry trade and many of the other things we've talked about on this channel for a long time to actually transpire here. We do have the end of the comment period tomorrow, which I thought it was already passed. Apparently, the public comment period for the OCC on stablecoin regulation was May 1st. That's when that ended. But tomorrow is the last day that the FDIC, FinCEN, and the Treasury can comment on how they would like the OCC to provide guidance around stablecoin issuance and yield. So anytime between then, well, tomorrow and July 18th, they can issue that stablecoin guidance out to the market. You also have Japan going live yesterday evening with their regulation around stablecoins as legal tender and the ability to transact international payments there in Japan utilizing stablecoins. So lots of things moving forward here. If you're watching the charts that I like to watch, the yen versus the USD, the 10-year treasury for both the US and for Japan's bonds, and then also the oil, both again in US dollars and in yen. We've seen a big move higher in oil today with the news that Iran is not going to be settling or negotiating with the U.S. any further. They're going to be shutting down the strait, and then Trump piled on and said we will also blockade the Strait of Hormuz. So I haven't looked at oil priced in yen since then, but I would expect that it is up. It is up back over 15,000, and then we pulled back a little bit to 14.6 here. If we get a sustained move in oil priced in yen back over 17, we will see Japan intervene in the currency market, and they can do a couple things. They can either raise interest rates like they need to, or they can, sell some more debt or sell off treasuries to be able to strengthen the yen versus the USD. They've already spent $73 billion in the last couple months defending the yen. We are right back up to that line where they normally like to intervene. They're at 159.6 yen per US dollar. They don't like that to be over 160. We've seen them continually defend that price point between the two. And so I do think, if we see it creep above 160 again, that's when we will likely see an intervention from the Bank of Japan. And again, they might have one more, lick that they can put on the market before the IMF is going to, kind of put their foot down and tell them, hey, look, like you're going to have to raise interest rates type deal. I do think that they're going to need a scapegoat. The other thing that Iran has said what's come out today is they could shut down the strait on the other side of the peninsula there. And if they were to do that, that would really constrict the oil supply. That's really been the only outlet for Europe and their ability to get natural gas and oil to be able to power their economy. And same thing with, Japan and some of these other nations. Japan, obviously is leaning heavily on the US. We do have a lot of ships, shipping oil to them. And I saw today that we had like 70 something ships escorted through the Strait of Hormuz by the US Navy over there. So the tensions continue to rise. It would not surprise me to see things escalate. Iran's also threatened to cut the underwater sea cables that are going on through the Strait of Hormuz. That's not going to really affect us here in the U.S., but it would affect other nations on that side of the world. And, Starlink is positioned to be able to kind of save the day in that capacity. And so, I think we're seeing the slow demolition of the petrodollar. And when that's finally done, we will see the rollout of this new financial system. We also have the 250th anniversary of the U.S. on July 4th this year. Doing a lot of preparation there at the White House for that. And I don't know if you guys have seen the lawn. but they've completely torn that out and built a whole stage and all kinds of stuff up there. The Washington Monument is also outfitted for this deal, and we are just under a month away, or just over a month away from that day taking place. So hopefully we get some gold-backed treasuries. Judy Sheldon saying that we are going to get a 250th anniversary kind of gift where a 50-year treasury bond is issued and redeemable in gold backed by the U.S. We also have Trump coming out and saying that he's going to audit Fort Knox. Over a year ago, he made that claim and really never made good on it. So we will see if they actually come through this time on that threat. That has not been audited since the 70s. And I'm pretty confident that the gold that's supposed to be there is not there. That's not to say that the U.S. doesn't have enough gold to be able to issue the gold-backed bond. I'm highly confident that we've also been stockpiling gold and bonds that are redeemable in gold over the past 5-6 years, just like China and Russia. So we're well positioned. I'm not concerned about the U.S. dollar or our ability to participate in the global economy. I do think that XRP is going to play a pivotal role in our ability to continue to stay a superpower. Ripple is obviously a U.S.-based company. And I'm hopeful, just like everybody else, that we're not going to have any tax implications as far as capital gains on crypto or certain digital assets that are domestic here. So that's where things are at. Again, if you want to learn more, shared much more today in the mastermind. Again, at beyondbroke.com, you can use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. Check it out, month to month, no contract, cancel at any time. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions here. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. If you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share, hype it if you feel so inclined. And we'll go ahead and jump in. Myco 88, I like the 88. He says, appreciate you, Jake, and all that you do. General thoughts on privacy tokens and its importance for an average person to be aware of and looking into. So Zcash, Monero, Pirate Coin, there's a couple things out there that are privacy-based tokens. A left zero actually was really the only token that was out there that I think never had a backdoor put in it by the CIA or the one of the other 3-letter agencies, the NSA. We know Matt Newberg very well, and so that project is winding down. Zcash and Monero are two of the prominent tokens out there. I'm confident that they're going to be able to roll out zero-knowledge proofs on the XRPL and some of these other blockchains. Banks wouldn't be willing to participate otherwise, and they're also going to have permissioned ecosystems where you're going to have to be able to meet the credentials required to access them to be able to view the transactions happening there. That's a big deal on the XRPL in particular, with digital identity and credentials, permission domain, and permission DEX. That orchestrates the layer that allows financial institutions and enterprises to be able to transact privately between one another, even on the mainnet, without access to the open public. So, I've thought for a long time that the blockchains that had private permissioned ecosystems and an open public ledger that allowed transactions to happen between both would be the winners. And that's looking like that is going to be the case. So, as things progress here, if you are participating in utility-driven digital assets, I'm confident that zero-knowledge proofs will be part of that. And you'll only have to disclose what information is required by whatever regulatory body when interacting with certain counterparties on the network. So, right now, if you set up an account and you have to KYC, you have to put in your information over and over and over again. In the future, with digital identity, it's going to be really cool. I think you'll just be able to share your hash, and they will have access to whatever data is a complete necessity for whatever duration of time they're required to by law. And outside of that, they won't be able to see anything else. So, like when you go to present your ID at to buy alcohol or whatever else, right? They only look for your age on there. In Texas, your ID is actually the other direction, so it makes it very easy for them to tell if you are over the age or under the age required to purchase alcohol. Other states may not be that way, but all that being said, there's a bunch of information on there that they don't need. I guess they need it to be able to verify that it's you. It's a photo of you. It's got your height, your weight, your hair color, your eye color. If you're wearing corrective lenses or whatever else on the back of your ID, but they don't need to know that, right? So you'd only be sharing whatever information is required using digital ID in the future. And I'm really excited for that. I think it's also going to do a lot for content creators and other people that get scammed online. You guys see all of the fake Jakes that are out there. This is the real one. I have hands. I'm not AI. But there's a lot of people that imitate our accounts across social media platforms. And I believe on the other side of digital identity, they won't be able to do that because they'll be able to verify directly which ones are actually me or you. And, the blue check mark and the other ways that they kind of do that now will kind of be a thing of the past. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, definitely a big role. I will say this though, in speaking with MasterCard, and this was, more than 2 years ago. Back then they had a way to be able to track all the transactions across pretty much any blockchain, didn't matter. So if they had that then, you can only imagine how much better that's gotten till now. And, with them getting their New York BIT license, obviously they're still very intimately involved in digital assets and implementing this technology and their payments infrastructure and what they're doing. So at this point, I would suspect that it's very robust and they could probably track back any transaction on chain to, you or whatever counterparty that wallet's associated with. So, I know people want to transact anonymously. If you want to transact anonymously, you better use cash. There's not really, any way that you can utilize the banking infrastructure that exists today where they're not going to be able to trace it back to you. And unless you're doing something illegal or malicious, I don't know why you would care a whole lot. They're not going to be sharing that information publicly with people. Again, with zero knowledge proofs and permission domain and permission DEX, a lot of these payments are only going to be accessible by the counterparties that need to see them or audit them or check to see if there's something shady going on. So again, it is important. You need to understand zero knowledge proof and what that means, or ZK proof is what most people talk about. But the privacy tokens themselves probably already have a backdoor built into them with the NSA or the other three-letter agencies that are out there. My best guess. Cat Purple, it's an interesting name. They say just get back cut and paste responses or have to ask questions again was not what I hoped for from family office, what I expected from corp slop companies. Well, I mean, the high-end clients that we deal with, it's bespoke and you'll get an account manager and they deal directly with you. Here's the other piece, like everybody wants to be taken care of and we want to take care of everybody. So at some level, we have to automate systems and processes. And if a lot of people ask the same questions, we have canned responses for those people so that our team can get to everybody. We have a lot of inbound on a daily basis. And so I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying you have to understand like how a business actually operates. If you want bespoke advice and you want somebody to cater to you, we do that for a portion of our client base that holds large amounts of assets with us. And we're happy to do that. We have a white glove service for those individuals. But, to be able to do this at scale and make sure everybody has access to what they need, we also have, streamlined systems to be able to make that scalable. You can't have both, right? With AI, we're getting there. We're working on some cool stuff internally to be able to build out bespoke responses and estate plans and all of that stuff at scale for our client base. But if you want your own people that work for you, you're going to need about $100 million. And you can set up your own family office. You can hire your own people, your own CIO, CEO, CFO, and all the people that, do your bill pay and accounting and all of that. You can pay them a couple $1 million a year and they'll be happy to do that for you. But if you want to work with a multifamily office that reduces your costs and gets you access to things that aren't, available for pretty much anybody else in the market, I think we're the go-to for that. It's good feedback though. So I'll take that back to the team and see what we can do to kind of curate responses a little bit better so that it doesn't come across as disingenuous or like we don't care. Because we really do care. And I'm sorry that you feel that way after the interaction. And hopefully, at some point in the future, you'll reach back out and we can kind of, hopefully at that point, we'll have implemented some changes that meet your needs. Wager rewards. They say, why choose DWP versus a company like iTrustCapital? Why pay $16K on $800,000 investment to DWP every single year just to simply have institutional custody, while companies like ITC AUM fees are literally zero? What advantages and value adds justifies this? That's a really good question, actually. So you have an advisor to be able to help you through all of this. At iTrustCapital, it's self-directed. They only do self-directed IRAs. They also have a self-directed Fireblocks instance where you can hold your assets. I have a little bit different, definition of institutional custody than other people do. It's kind of a term that's thrown around, and they're not wrong or right. I think Fireblocks is great. They use MPC technology. They don't have HSMs, which is required in order to be FIPS compliant for for a qualified custodian here in the U.S. There's additional oversights and audits that we have to adhere to because we are SEC registered and FINRA registered. That also causes, some additional compliance and red tape and all those things. So there's some additional security and things that we have around what we do. We also have access to institutional products to be able to generate returns on the XRP or other digital assets that you have with us that those counterparties won't. In order to be able to offer, pooled vehicles or any of the other investment products, you're going to likely have to be a registered investment advisor, which requires a lot of additional overhead and compliance and personnel and all those things. I'm pretty confident that we have access to the most institutional products that are out there, and we'll continue to bring those to market over the next, 1 to 6 months. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with the ways that they're able to put their assets to work while they're held there, safe and secure. It's going to be difficult for other people to be able to bring those products to their client base without the oversight from the regulators or offering unregistered securities. There was, and I'm not saying anybody that you mentioned is anywhere remotely close to this. I think that the people that you mentioned are actually doing a very good job operating in the space that we're currently in. We've taken a little bit different path than most people. We've tried to uphold the highest level of regulatory compliance that we possibly could. And so with that, it's been a little bit slower grow. The marketing rule applies in ways that it doesn't to other people. So, and again, we're not saying you hold everything with us either, right? 800 grand is a decent amount of digital assets. And we have a lot of people that open an account with us and park the minimum over there or a little bit more than the minimum until we see some price movement or the ability to generate additional returns that they're comfortable with in a way that they're comfortable with. So, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and type deal. I encourage people to hold a portion of their assets on a cold wallet, maybe another exchange with iTrustCapital. We just want to be a tool and an option for people in the market. And because of the way that we're structured and the additional assurances that we have, along with the advisory, like you're not going to get bespoke financial advice at any of those other places. They aren't going to be able to walk you through how to exit your position, mitigate taxes, structure your estate the right way. It's kind of you're left to your own devices. Again, it's self-directed. So if that matters to you, if you're already very financially literate and you've built out a plan and you understand, where you're going, what you're going to do with the money, how to mitigate the taxes, how to do it the right way, then you're probably fine to just use the other platforms. But that's what justifies the additional cost that we charge our client base. And as the assets grow in value over $10 million, it drops to 40 bips. So it continues to come down. And as our costs come down, we will continue to pass those savings on to our client base. So yeah, again, like, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and we're happy that there's other good people in the market doing good things to be able to provide solutions to people. So we've got, I have no idea how to say that, but I appreciate the super chat. They say, will XRP do what ICP did in terms of supply shock? You know, I don't actually know what made the move up to 750 on ICP, but you're indicating that it was a supply shock back then. We've already seen that happen once with XRP when they escrowed half of the total supply with Ripple. That's what caused the move back in 2017, 2018, where we saw the big run up to $3.84, which we haven't revisited yet, but I think we will in the near future. So I would say yes. I don't know that it'll be the exact same circumstances in which, you know, ICP went through the supply shock that it had, but I'm confident that we will see a lot more demand than there is supply on the market for XRP in the not too distant future, and that will cause it to be a much, much higher price. We've got this gentleman again. I always butcher his name, but I appreciate the questions in the super chat. He says, Jake, 628, the DTCC begins the official test tokenization 24/5. Is the carry trade and T0 needed before 628? That's the first question. Number two is the elite uses the Ethiopian calendar, 7 years behind the Gregorian. The Economist 88, the Phoenix used a coin with 10 2018. That's June 26, 2026. Green June. I mean, that's a compelling conspiracy theory. And look, like, conspiracy theories are an interesting thing. They're only a conspiracy theory for about 6 months before they get proven right a lot of the time. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, I don't see a way that they can move to T+0 without a much higher price for XRP. And in order to be able to facilitate 24/5 trading, that would also be a necessity for that. They have everything else in place aside from Ripple having a FedMaster account and the OCC issuing stablecoin guidance. Those are kind of the two pieces that I'm watching for. Now, could the reverse carry trade push the OCC to issue guidance? Sure. Right. So if we saw a systemic risk and they already had all the comments they needed to be able to execute things, then they could absolutely move forward with that. Yes. Okay.
Super chat.
I will read that.
Disclaimer.
Okay, I'll get there.
And people on the TikTok are asking about lending.
Okay, I will talk to you guys about lending.
Thank you.
All right, my wife has reminded me of the super chat here, so hopefully that was, I can't give you a hard yes or no, will it happen this month type thing. I told you guys I'm watching March, June, July, so that would fall in that period. Kale Reeves says, won't the XRP burn rate get to thousands, tens of thousands per day once mass adoption continues? Comfort level using Flare apps like Spectra and Spark DEX for yield with a little bit of a bag. So two parts here. So the burn rate can actually be reduced. They can vote on that on the XRPL, just like they voted for the requirement to be able to open a wallet to come down. It used to be 20 XRP and then it was 10 XRP and now it's 2 XRP. So there's a lot of people that have dust, they set up wallets years ago and then just left that XRP in there. They can actually go back to those wallets now and take that XRP out. I don't know how to do this. It may be on the XRP toolkit, but I know that you can actually close a wallet. I think it burns half the XRP that's in that wallet when you do it, but you get to redeem the other piece that's locked away. So be cool to see if somebody came out with a video on that. Maybe I'll figure out how to do it and share that with you guys. But when it comes to the burn rate, even if it was tens of thousands a day, they've only burnt 1.5 million XRP up to this point. It's been operating for 14 years, but they, at scale, to your point, would probably have to vote to be able to reduce the burn rate down to a smaller portion because the fees on the network are denominated in XRP. Hedera is different. Hedera you are required to pay the fees in Hedera, but that's denominated, the fees on the network are denominated in dollar value. So even if the asset continues to appreciate, you would use less and less of the asset to pay the dollar denominated fees on Hedera. The XRPL doesn't operate that way. So yes, it would become a problem at some point, but even at that point, it's still going to last a very long time, even at the burn rate that it currently sits at scale, especially if there's more value in XRP, because you're going to be able to move more value with less XRP. David Schwartz has talked about this. With $1 million XRP, you could move $1 million with 1 XRP versus, right now you would need like 800,000 XRP to move $1 million. So that would also reduce the cost on the network for sending transactions. When it comes to Flare, love those guys. I think Hugo and them are doing great work. I can't talk too much about the parties that you mentioned in the super chat. But yeah, you just want to understand the risks when you're participating in DeFi, right? How the assets are held, are they insured, how they're being used in order to be able to generate the return, who has ownership of the assets when you're contributing them to the pool, or is it a pooled vehicle? Do your assets stay segregated? There's just a lot of considerations there, all things that we're looking at over there on the wealth management side. And we do want to be able to push forward institutional DeFi, very similar to Evernorth. Talked a little bit about Evernorth in the mastermind earlier today. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, you can go check it out. But yeah, I think that a lot of the clients over there with DAG on the wealth management side will likely escalate up the risk curve as long as they understand the risks associated with those investments. They will be able to generate not a significantly higher return, but a high enough return that it might justify the risk for some people if they're suitable for that. And that's the other benefit of a financial advisor. They can walk you through like, okay, we have these 10 products, right? These are the very low risk ones. These are moderate risk. These are high risk. You probably want the majority of your digital assets in low risk or moderate risk. And then maybe a portion, like a small bag, like you said here, you might escalate up the risk curve. And I do think that DeFi will become much less risky over time. We're going to do our part to be able to make sure that that's the case. Providing those additional assurances, thinking through all the risks, making sure those are disclosed to clients. Again, huge value add if you have a financial advisor that's actually understanding all this stuff and able to communicate it to you so that, maybe you had an oversight on something and didn't really consider something and they're able to bring it up and help you navigate that. My wife said disclaimer, and then we'll get to the lending. So as always, this is for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. The opinions shared here tonight are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. And then on the lending side, so I do think that we're going to have on-chain lending here in the near future. XLS 65 and 66 are currently up for vote. I haven't seen those move here recently, but they did just update the network the other day for the AMMs. And so those should be able to work at scale at this point on the XRPL. With the pools that you'll be contributing to on-chain, there will be some oversight. I would expect that, they will have a broker that sits there and underwrite the risk, and that they'll likely have an arbiter that you will also, have to deal with if there's, something that goes sideways, somebody doesn't pay for something. They'll, help you litigate, and they'll be able to see everything that happened there in the pool and who was wronged and who, did the wronging in a court. And so, almost all of the underwriting and everything else will still be done off chain. It's just the transactions that'll be happening through these liquidity pools. David Schwartz has talked about that. So if you are participating in that function, again, you want to understand how the yield's being generated, what the underwriting process is for how the assets or, whatever is being lent out is being done, so that, you understand the risks associated with participating there. And again, like, not saying not to do it. I'm just saying, like, just be educated. What I tell my son is, I don't know if this completely applies here, but if you're going to be stupid, be smart about it, right? If you're going to go out and drink, you probably don't want to drive. You probably should get an Uber or call one of your parents. Just stuff like that, right? So understand the risks when you're doing stuff, and then try to mitigate those. The potential bad outcomes when you're doing that as much as possible. And you're never going to be able to mitigate all risks, right? There are no guarantees. You're not anybody that tells you that it's a sure thing. Whatever it is, probably doesn't understand all of it. Again, you could say that with me on XRP. I have a lot of confidence around that. But, yeah, again, just invest at your own risk. Take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of people out there that are very intelligent that I hold in high regard, that share different opinions than mine. So listen to a bunch of people and then, consult with your financial advisor before making those decisions. But on the lending side, I think that that's the way the majority of people are going to be able to access liquidity at scale for their XRP over time, even if they were to remove taxes on XRP, which I do think is a likely outcome, to be honest with you, for all the banks to be able to use this and send payments. And, there's going to be small discrepancies. XRP needs to be a free-floating asset in order to be able to absorb the additional demand over time. It can't be fixed. It may be stable, just like stablecoins are, but you see them flex a little bit. Sometimes they're worth a little bit more than $1. Sometimes they're worth a little bit less than $1. I think that that's how XRP is going to be at scale. And so there will be small discrepancies in payments that get sent. And if you had to calculate every single one of those and then come back and do your taxes with gains or losses between those transactions, it's just too much. So I think that they're going to simplify that and just say, hey, I don't know if they'll eradicate all capital gains on XRP and XLM and some of these other digital assets that are used for value transfer. But I think if you're using it in that capacity, they may provide an exemption to people that are using it for payments or in a institutional or enterprise setting. And then, when it comes to actually borrowing against the XRP, you want to understand the volatility risk, the LTV, the interest rate, what your obligations are for payments, just like any other loan. That's what it is. It's a loan, right? So you're getting either new basis XRP or cash or stablecoins against the XRP. And if that value falls too far, there's volatility in the market, you're going to have to shore that up. There'll be a capital call. And you need to be prepared in order to be able to meet that if that ends up happening. But you have that excess liquidity that you can then go do other things with, right? So if you're deploying that into something that is tokenized, that's a lot more liquid, that generates a return that you could pull from very quickly if there was volatility in the market to be able to rebalance the other, that's probably not a bad thing. But again, you want those additional assurances like, how often am I able to pull this out? What are the funds being used for? How is it held? What's my counterparty risk? So, I think that that's the majority of the way that people are going to be able to participate with their XRP and do all the things that you want to do, right? Like, you're not investing in this stuff to just hold it forever like a pet rock. Like, you want to be able to take benefit from it. But you don't want to have to deal with, huge tax implications. You don't want to lose it to creditors. You don't want to lose it to divorce. You don't want, your children to get married and, that to become a problem if they get divorced. You want things structured the right way to be able to mitigate those risks. And that's what we help people do. And then also on the lending, if you have a financial advisor, they're going to say, hey, you probably shouldn't take more than 20 or 30% LTV on this. LTV is loan to value ratio. So if you put up, call it 100 XRP and you took 20 to 30% LTV, that would be 20 or 30 XRP that you would put up or borrow that amount from the 100 XRP. And that way, if there was volatility in the market, you don't have a chance of getting liquidated. Now, have there been 70 to 80% downturns in markets? Sure. And so you need to be prepared for those circumstances if they were to transpire. But on the other side of price appreciation and implementation of these protocols, again, I think they're going to be very high stable prices, and it's going to be much safer to participate in that type of stuff. We've got Pro Gym. They say, Mr. Legend and T Lady, thank you for all that you do. Japan raises their interest rates 25 basis points and the US lowers theirs 25 basis points. Do we still get the reverse carry trade? you need to see the bond yield on the 10-year really over 3%. That's where Japan's going to be in big trouble. They can't meet their debt obligations over that point. And they're going to have to do something in order to be able to navigate that. If the US were to lower interest rates, I don't know how far out the bond curve that would really affect things. People are scared that we're going to default anyway. So that's why you see bonds, the yields there continuing to rise. If they had the assurances that the US wasn't going to default, like we implemented a gold-backed treasury, then you would see rates come down. And we also, a lot of people believe that Warsh is going to come in and lower interest rates. He's indicated that on multiple interviews. Trump's indicated that that's what he would like to see. I do think that we need that to be able to drive the economy and get people out of situations. We've seen a lot of mortgage defaults here in the last quarter, like 25% more than the previous quarter. So that's starting to escalate. People are not able to service their debt or meet their obligations. We have the highest level of credit card debt that's ever existed in the US. Student loans, cars, houses, you name it, anything that people have financed at scale are becoming untenable for some of the population with the amount of inflation that's currently happening. And so, just other things in their life that they normally could afford on their paycheck, they're not able to. So we have to be able to stabilize that. And I think that Warsh and the Treasury combined are going to be able to navigate that situation. But I do think, if a 25 basis point move in the rate caused them to be pushed over 3%, yeah, you would start to see that unwind. I think it's going to be more than that. I think they're going to move like 75 basis points when they move, because they haven't moved since August of 24, and they've needed to move the whole time, but they knew they couldn't because of the leverage that's built into the system. This person says, mastermind member, awesome. Glad to have you in the community. They say, just wanted to say my appreciation for you and the crew. It's me and my wife's anniversary tonight. Congratulations. You didn't tell me how long you've been married, but however long it is, congratulations on your success. Pray that you guys continue to be able to navigate marriage and stay together and continue to prosper over time. So thank you for being part of the mastermind and the kind words. And it's a rare deal today. Like 50% of people that get married in the US end up getting divorced. So if you are able to navigate that with your spouse and actually stick to the vows that you made, kudos to you. Brad, Mr. Bryson, he says, hey Jake, is this too simple of a strategy? Long time horizon here, focused on self-growth until price appreciation. Then I keep XRP for life, use dividends from DWP, my lifestyle, diversify into cash flowing assets. I think that's, kind of the go-to, Brad. There's a lot of nuance in there on how to navigate that, right? Again, the other gentleman asked, what value we provide. I think that we're going to be instrumental in a lot of people keeping their wealth and maintaining it over decades versus, making some poor choices early on that are emotional or getting into, some stuff where they have some problems. And again, we're just one tool. I'm not saying we're the end all be all. There's a lot of solutions out there. And I think a lot of people are very smart and can navigate this on their own. If they have done the work like you're talking about over whatever duration you've been holding, if you have, become financially literate and you understand a lot of the tax consequences and estate planning and insurance products and all the other stuff that the wealthiest people in the world use to be able to maintain their wealth over multiple generations, I think you'll be fine. But if you want some advisory, if you want some help, and you want access to that, maybe you don't even have to park your whole bag over there, but you just want, some oversight and to be able to ask some questions. I think we provide a lot of value along those lines. And we will definitely have opportunities to be able to diversify inside of a regulated environment. You'll even be able to diversify how you generate returns on your XRP. Like I mentioned before, we're working on a lot of different products to be able to bring those to market so that you have a breadth of products that you can work with your advisor to be able to allocate to. Look, like the other thing is, I think a lot of people see us as a wealth manager, and they would be correct today. Over the long term, we want to become a platform for people. and the conduit between a lot of different, so that you get access to, all the different solutions that are out there on the institutional side that you wouldn't be able to access as a retail investor. Now, if you've got $100 million, you may be an institution by yourself. But the other net benefit that we're going to have is being able to negotiate even better returns and better lending rates and cost on things than you would on your own, because you're going to be part of a collective, right? So we've already seen how the XRP family can come together and help, each other out. We saw that during the lawsuit. Over 75,000 people participated with John Deaton on his side there, advocating for XRP, that it was not a security. I'm hopeful that we continue to do that on the other side of price appreciation. We're stronger together than we are being torn apart. And, to that point, there's a lot of people out there that differ on opinions on how we get to the promised land, right? I have my thesis on how that takes place, but I'm happy for any one of them to be right also. We all win, right? Like, I'm not here to argue about semantics or the nuances of how it transpires. I have a strong thesis, I feel, but at the same time, other people have compelling information that they brought forth that could work out to the way that they think it's going to be. But it all leads to higher prices for XRP, right? And then on the other side of it, again, like, I think the largest legacy that the mastermind is going to leave behind isn't the deals that we're going to do or the amount of money that you're going to make in the investments. I think it's the philanthropic work that we're going to be doing. Actually using the abundance that we're going to have to be able to make a change and a difference in the world through a bunch of different avenues that people feel strongly compelled to help in. So, yeah, it's a great strategy, and I think that you'll be very successful in executing it. And again, I have to say, not financial advice. Rick Johnson, he says, definition of FU money. When people calls and says 300K to be at a local place X tomorrow for 1 hour, you can, without pause, tell them F you. You're so rich. You can just have that attitude. F you rich is the end goal. I think optionality is what you're talking about there. So if you have enough money, I think I've given you guys this before, but I'll talk about it again. So, I'm sure you guys heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And he's got multiple steps to that. I kind of truncate that a little bit, and I only have 4 in mind. The first one's just survival, right? So most people live in that. They really don't have many options, or they don't feel that they do. They're just, trying to get to the next paycheck so that they can cover their bills and get by. They don't have any discretionary income. A lot of people live in that state for the majority of their life, which is unfortunate. The next tier beyond that would be status. So, these are people that are materialistic. They want to keep up with the Joneses. Their neighbor gets a nice car, they get a nice car. Somebody else gets a new iPhone, they want the new iPhone. Again, none of these stages are wrong. I just want to be clear about that. It's really just, what drives you and potentially also how you've grown up. And you can change at any time. You can decide that this other stuff is more important, right? Any one of these tiers, you can decide that that's the new thing for you. Then the next level beyond status is freedom. And I think that's what you're talking about. So being able to go and do and see and, participate in whatever you want to, whenever you want to, really with whoever you want to. Or don't want to, right? If you just want to go with you and your family, you can rent out, Disney World, and then it's just you and your family. I think it wasn't Kevin Hart, but he was telling me about, somebody else threw a birthday party for their kid, and that's what they did. They just rented the whole theme park. When I worked at one of my previous employers, they would do that at the end of the year, and they would fly in, people that had performed well across the company, and they would rent the park out for the second half of the day, and it would just be the employees for that corporation that were able to attend that and go there. Again, cool stuff that you can do as a group. On the other side of price appreciation, everybody can kind of pitch in. You're not going to have the animosity of like, I had to pay for all this and you guys, don't appreciate it enough type stuff. That's going to be the cool part about this community, is everybody's going to have an abundance, and you'll be able to participate in groups and be able to negotiate down costs or maybe the costs are the same, but you all pool capital together, and then it's a lot less for you to be able to participate in the same thing that would have cost you much more if you just done it on your own. So that's the third level is freedom. The epitome of this would be the Telegram CEO. I don't know if you guys have seen interviews with him. He doesn't own any physical assets whatsoever. Doesn't own a home, doesn't own cars, doesn't own a jet. He just rents everything he needs when he wants to use it, because he doesn't want to be tied down to any physical place or thing, or have to deal with the maintenance, the additional stuff on that. So, a lot of people talk about investing in assets. They talk about real estate. They talk about, businesses and all of that. All of that is going to require you to work, just so you know. Like, it's not a passive income deal. It might not be a ton of work, but it's still going to be something on your mind that you're going to be thinking about and have to, deal with on, an infrequent basis at best. And then the last one, and this is kind of the one that I believe a lot of people that own XRP operate in, is purpose. All the other things come along with purpose. You see other people that have BHAGs or big, hairy, audacious goals that they set, and then they're able to rally people around them in order to be able to accomplish those. I mean, think about Elon Musk, right? You may not like Elon, but you have to admit going to Mars is a big deal. And being able to be an interplanetary species to be able to mitigate the risk of the Earth, blowing up at some point. That's a big goal. And that requires a lot of really smart people working on it to actually be able to actualize it. And then how do you monetize that in a way where it's able to fund itself? Well, you do each one of the pieces, right? So you've got self-driving cars. You're going to need those on Mars because you're not going to be able to send people at first. You need an AI that can oversee everything that's going on there, because again, you're not going to have people on the planet, but you still want purview of what's going on. You're going to need a boring company to be able to bore things underground in order to be able to create communities that aren't dealing with the radiation of the sun. You're going to need Starlink to be able to communicate between here and there, and you're going to need SpaceX to be able to travel between the Earth and wherever they're going. So if you look at all of his companies, they are all pieces of what actually actualizes that goal. If you haven't ever read the book about OKRs or objectives and key results, would love for people to do that. Google and many other large corporations have implemented that, and that's why they've been extremely successful. They have one high objective, and then they build key results underneath that that they then have to actualize in order to be able to meet that objective. And you can whittle that down to daily tangible actions that you're taking toward that larger goal. So if you can use that framework, it's actually very useful. And I think that that's what Elon does. He uses first principles, reverse engineers things, takes what's actually required and kind of removes the rest from the deal. There's a lot you can learn from him, whether you like him or not. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't think anybody does. Same thing with Trump. I definitely don't agree with everything he says. But you have to have some respect for people that have been extremely successful and the frameworks that they use. So anyway, that's my hierarchy. And again, everybody's purpose is different. But if you are, really looking to create value in society, and I don't want to say change the world, but leave it better than you found it. There's a lot of ways to do that. And I find it very telling that the majority of people I interact with that own a large amount of XRP or have a significant allocation, whatever that means for them, that's what their goals and objectives are. It's not self-indulgence or egotistical. Some people have a little bit of an ego, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think you need a little bit of an ego to think that this is possible and that you can accomplish it. But on the other side, they're very giving, and they have a certain cause or multiple causes that they want to, provide value to and accelerate and be able to realize, the benefits that those are going to drive in society. We got Off the Grid Hero. He says, do you still work with Rustin Deal? What to do multiple trusts and LLCs with him? And is he trustworthy? Rustin's good people. We kind of separated ways with Rustin. We brought that in-house through Dan Plaskett and another attorney. When we first started working with Rustin, he did a lot of work for lesser prices in order to be able to help people out. And then over time, he kind of moved his price points up. And we just felt like we could get good quality work inside of, and that's what we've done. Like, same thing with Laughlin, same thing with some of the other stuff that we've done over time. We want to continue to reduce costs for people, right? And still give you the same quality of work or better work for less of a cost. And so, you'll continue to see us do that over time. We'll roll things out. It may be a little pricier. As an example, right? So we rolled out accounting and bill pay about a year ago. And we have some clients that participate with that. We originally charged $6,000 a month for it. And we've been able to automate things with AI and, kind of shore some things up and change, how streamlined it is and create efficiencies for that. And we brought it in-house. And so now it's only $2,000 a month for the accounting and bill pay. That's up to 10 entities that you can have there. So, it's not perfect. There is some additional cost if you've got more entities than 10, but a lot of the people that are watching this or people that we work with, they don't, right? So that's just another example. And we'll continue to do that. We've started the insurance company. We brought that in-house. We'll continue to, make acquisitions or bring things in a way where we're able to reduce costs for all of our clients over the long term and create efficiencies and provide, again, a very high level of work when we're doing it. So Rustin's good people. We wish him well. He definitely helped a lot of clients out early on. And so, if you do want us to review that and kind of see how that's going, and if we can add additional value to what he's already created, that's free. You can just bring it over and they'll give you a synopsis of that on our side. Again, loyalty is a big deal for us. So people that have worked with us for a long time, if they've worked with one of our counterparties before, we do all that for free. So you reach out to Dan Plaskett. You just email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. And our team there will connect you, and he can help you review those documents and LLCs to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And like I said, I'm sure that they are if you worked with Rustin, but they will double check all that for you. Off the Grid Hero again, he says it's 2040 and XRP is 100K plus, robots and AI everywhere and everything. Where is Jake Claver? 2040. I, at that point, will hopefully be on boards. That's a lot of my goal with everything that we're doing. We want to scale this company. We want to create solutions, provide value, make sure that people have what they need in order to be able to navigate this and not have any potholes that they run into or cause themselves undue harm. And on the other side of that, I want to help other people, right? Give back in certain ways, and also help navigate whatever the most progressive tech is at the time. I think the blockchain and AI and space and biotech, there's so many things all compounding right now, and actually converging, which is wild. Quantum. I mean, there's a lot of different fronts where technology is progressing extremely quickly. And, more than a decade from now, I hope to be in a position where I can help other people navigate things that are happening very quickly. I mean, we've grown this business 400% year over year, every year for the past 3 years. This year, I believe we'll continue at that rate. We're already on pace to do that. And so, with that experience, it's high pressure. It's a lot to navigate all at once. You have to think critically through things while still navigating compliance and risk and all the other stuff associated with that. And so hopefully I have the wisdom and discernment to be able to sit on boards at that point and help other founders and other people navigate those things as they scale their companies, because how fast things scale in the future are going to be much faster than they are today. Like we're already doing stuff with AI that blows my mind. How fast we're able to get something to market or create, an MVP that years ago, even a year ago would have cost you $100,000. Now you can do it with Claude in a day. You don't need a full development team. You can vibe code stuff. It is getting freaky what you're able to accomplish. So I can only imagine more than a decade from now what you'll be able to do. And I also would like to step back and spend some time with my family and travel and, do all the stuff that people dream about. that you know, are working toward a liquidity event for. But I feel called to help other people, and hopefully I'm in a position where people trust me enough to put me in position to help them do that in the future. AmServe, they say, did you see the BIS had a press release on the 27th? Project Agora. I did see that. They shared a programmable platform for wholesale cross-border payments. Thoughts? I would encourage you to go look at Smoke. So shout out to Smoke. He puts out a lot of really good information over there on Twitter. Him and I differ on how we're going to get to high-priced XRP. I'm completely cool with that. The dude does fantastic research. SMQKE is his name over there on Twitter. I don't know what his full handle is. I'll actually pull it up here and I'll tell you. You'd think I'd have him on speed dial here. There he is. Smoke Dog. I know that's an interesting name for somebody that does really good research, but SMQKEDQG, all capitalized, is his handle over there on Twitter. Give him a follow. But you can look at the research that he's done about Project Agora, if you would like to, and how that correlates with XRP. So I will point to him. He's the one that's done the deep research on that. And again, kudos to him for doing it. But a lot of it does point to them utilizing XRP in that infrastructure. Work hard, play harder. Says, hey, Jake, I watch a lot of your lives on Monday and Wednesday. Please convince me you actually believe this is not just doing it for clicks and views. Well, so look, I just candidly, that is kind of part of it, right? I can't make the impact that I want to have on people's lives if I don't get on here and do that. So it is self-serving in some capacity. But like I've talked about before, I like to be selfishly selfish. So selflessly selfish. I try to align other people's outcomes and what would benefit them with my own. And so, you know, I get on here and I really do get a lot of fulfillment from answering questions. I wouldn't do it otherwise. I mean, I miss a lot of time with my family. There's other things that I, you know, could be sleeping this late at night to make sure, like tomorrow morning, I have a flight at 7:45. I've got to get up at probably 4 a.m. To make that flight, right? And I'm going to be on here for a whole nother hour, hanging out with you guys, answering questions. If I didn't think that this really mattered and that I wasn't really helping people, I wouldn't do it. And again, like full transparency, it is somewhat self-serving, but for me to be able, like I said, to have the impact that I want to have for people, it's part of what I signed up for. And I knew that going into it. Public facing, you know, people already recognize me in public, which is kind of weird. Most of the time they're really cool. They come up and say hi and they have some XRP and, you know, we chop it up about that. But post price appreciation, when people find my domino theory, and I'm sure look back at it, I anticipate that my life's going to change some. That's okay. Again, signed up for that when I put it out there. So, you know, some people like the content that I put out, other people don't, and that's okay. I think I probably repel some people just because I am pretty certain on what I'm certain about. But I'll also tell you, like, if I don't know, I don't know. Just like the Smoke deal. Like, I'm not going to be able to delineate Project Agora at the same level that that gentleman would be. And so I would much rather refer people to him to be able to go through that versus me trying to belabor it here and probably mess it up. So all that being said, you know, we do, you know, not gonna lie, there are thumbnails and all that stuff for the marketing. But that's also so that we can find the people, or the people can find us, that really need the help that we're offering, the services and value that we're creating. So it's synergistic. I don't look at it as, I don't like zero-sum games. The market is a zero-sum game. Somebody wins and somebody loses. Somebody's taking the other side of that trade when you are executing one. That's how the market exists, right? I think in the future, it will actually end up being self-serving, or not self-serving, but circular. And I think that the people participating in the market will all benefit from that. And I think that's the paradigm that we're moving to, which I'm excited about. And that's, again, I try to just stick by my core values and beliefs. And I think I shared that. Was it on? It may have been in the mastermind that I shared that the other day. So anyway, I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for or not. But I try to be open and transparent about stuff, and I appreciate all of the kind words and the support and the super chat. Stephans says, "Love you, Jake." Not in a weird way. Oh, you too, dude. He says, "Know you're working hard on this. Can you, in your best case scenario, describe the type of yield products you'd like to bring to DAG? Please include numbers on yield, fees, and risks. Thank you, my man." I don't want to sidestep this question because I really do want to. We don't have stuff finalized yet, and they get really weird now when I come on here and I talk about the products and services that we have before they're done, because things do change with our partners. So I don't know that I can speak exactly to the actual yields. I will talk about ranges and risk, and again, fees are going to vary. It just depends on our partners. So I'd love to do it all in-house, believe me. And then again, like I said, over time, we will bring things in-house to be able to reduce costs for people. So I'll just kind of break it up in segments. You probably, things escalate across the risk curve, right? So the funds that we currently have, I would say, are like maybe a 2 on the risk curve of 0 to 10. 0 being no risk, 10 being all the risk in the world. Because we've mitigated counterparty risk, we've mitigated volatility risk, but there still is risk that the strategies underperform, which has happened at certain points. So, that's the risk there. It is not a, foolproof way to generate returns, but you also participate if there's additional upside, you get that too. Further down the risk curve, I don't think that you'll ever be able to reduce risk to 0. I don't. If there are returns, there's always some risk, right? Even annuities, mutual funds, structured products that have some type of monthly return, real estate, all of that has risk. It's on the lower end of the risk curve, but there are still some risks. So I would lump those type of things in on the lower end of the risk curve: bonds, treasuries, those types of things where it's very unlikely that the counterparty would default. And leveraging the XRP in some way through different partnerships and institutional custody and providers to be able to get a reflected value of the XRP to be able to participate in those types of products. That'll be on the low end of the risk curve. As you escalate up the risk curve, there are algorithmic trading strategies that have strong performance over a period of time. There are institutional strategies that have been proven over durations of time. There are, even a little bit further up the risk curve, there are new strategies that people have, trialed in small amounts, but they haven't escalated up to, 10 million, 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion in allocation. And oftentimes, as you escalate up the amount of assets that are being put to work, you get a reduction in the returns. You run into the Warren Buffett problem, right? A lot of the time, a lot of the value that you can generate in real estate, as an example, isn't going to be on $100 million properties. Now, occasionally you find stuff like condos in Florida or Hawaii because of certain regulations there where people can generate outsized returns because of those jurisdictions and the way that they've done it. But, for the large majority of high-end real estate or primary real estate, you're just going to get the cash flow off of it. It's not going to have a huge IRR. Now, if you go downstream to things that are 5, 10, 20 million, and they're in secondary or tertiary markets or in growing areas, and you can renovate them and increase the value of the property and up the rents and do different things, yeah, you probably get some additional upside there, both in the valuation of the property over the time and the cash flow that you're generating. So you can see, if you're deploying capital on a smaller scale, why there's more returns, and it tends to truncate as you escalate, how much capital you're allocating to something. And then you often get relegated, like Warren Buffett. If you got $400 billion, where are you going to park it, right? You're parking it in treasuries because that's really the only place they can absorb that much liquidity. And the markets will shift too over time as more of these markets have more liquidity in them, and the market caps continue to increase. You won't have the truncating returns like you do today. So, and then further up the risk curve would be things like DeFi today. I think those will move further down the risk curve over time, but you don't necessarily have insurance on the smart contracts. There's hacks all the time on that stuff. Like the other gentleman said, a small portion or bag into DeFi. Absolutely, right? Like if you're okay with the risks there, probably make that allocation, and you just understand what those are. And for the time being, that will probably be on the high end of the risk curve of what we do. The other side of that is you can exit that very easily because it's tokenized and it's liquid, right? So some different risks exist depending on the type of investment that you're making, and that's what you need a financial advisor for, so that they can walk you through all of that stuff. So I think that we'll have multiple ways to be able to allocate to bonds and treasuries, and mutual funds, and what's that other account that you can move it into that makes 4 or 5%? I'm drawing a blank right now, but things like that, right? And then if you're escalating up, maybe you're making somewhere between 6 and 10% on the moderate side of the risk curve, maybe even up to 13, depending on if it's real estate or something that's hard and tangible and backed and underwritten well. Anything beyond that threshold, even with where interest rates are at, is probably up the risk curve a bit. There's high cost lending and some other things that are out there, liquidity pools that are generating, outsized returns, arbitrage and things like that, where people are doing stuff in the FX market, things that are a bit more progressive, and DeFi, probably on the upside of the risk curve. So that's kind of the general overview of all the different things that we're looking at. Also looking at, the stock market and private credit and debt and all of the other financial products that are out there that will eventually be on chain. Insurance. There's actually a really interesting product that was brought to my attention in Bermuda when I was there. That's a reinsurance company that pays 13% on funds allocated to them. And that would be a really good diversification play because people aren't going to default on their insurance unless it's like the bottom of the barrel. You're paying your premiums on your insurance for your car, or your house, or whatever else on a monthly basis, especially your car, because it's required by law, at least here in Texas. So anyway, I don't know if, again, that was exactly what you were looking for. I know that you probably wanted like, this one's going to pay this much and it's going to cost you this much, and these are the risks associated with it. As we roll those out, we will do webinars and things where we explain that explicitly. The advisors that we have will come on and speak about those things. I have to keep things pretty general just because, again, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not advocating for any specific products. I'm just giving you kind of general guidelines and my personal opinions on stuff. We are more than an hour in, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the super chats here, and I guarantee that I'm not going to get through all of them. So if you're just now joining us, don't post a super chat because I will miss it. I'll have to catch it on Wednesday night, and I'm probably not going to get to even all the ones that we currently have. Frederick, Mr. Fuentes, he says, Jack the man, been paycheck to paycheck, but finally got over 5K XRP. What would be my next move? No money left until price moves. 577 was the total, or was the goal. Sit on your hands. No, that's not what you want to hear. Protect it, right? Like that. If you really believe in the investment, like I do, then you want to make sure that you keep that for a long time. It's going to take a little bit for it to actually get to a level where it can support you. Again, highly confident that we could see $1,000 XRP this year in 2026, or a higher price than that, to be able to facilitate back-end settlement of the stock market and the FX market. You got SWIFT going live here in the near future to be able to settle cross-border payments. on their infrastructure using digital rails. All that seems to be culminating here this month in June. Interesting. So all that being said, even post price appreciation, I'd probably hang out for a bit. Get used to having the money. A lot of people that talk about lottery winners, they believe that lottery winners should sit with the money for 6 months and just continue their life, not quit their job, not immediately jump into buying things that are lavish or things that they've dreamed about. Really have a plan that's probably executed over a longer time frame. Once you have $10 million in digital assets and you're able to generate 5% pretty safely, which I think will happen this year in 2026 also. Not necessarily for the 5K, I just mean being able to generate those types of returns in a very safe way. Then, now you're making $500,000 a year fairly passively off of your investments. And that would be the point where, and maybe you sit on that for a little bit too. Make sure that it's good, it's not going anywhere. Start to, I wouldn't raise your lifestyle in the immediate term. Again, get situated, know what you're going to do with it, buy some assets that can pay for your liabilities, or use the assets that you've purchased to make sure that you have always double. It's producing double what you're spending. And then you can let the principal ride for forever. You ain't got to worry about, dipping into that. A lot of people think they can retire on a couple $1 million. Even at a 5 or 10% return on a couple $1 million, depending on how long you live, probably going to be eating into the principal. That's just the reality of the deal. Mr. Johnson talked about FU money earlier. I really kind of think that comes around 10 million, right? Like if you're making $500,000 a year off of your assets, you could live fairly nice life, depending on where you live in the US, for $250,000 a year. And, if you're not egotistical or gluttonous and you're not looking to upgrade, a ton in your lifestyle, and go hog wild, then you can make that last a long time, and you can set your kids up for success too. So the other piece would be financial education. I don't know that you need to set up an LLC or set up trusts or do any of that just yet. Like you mentioned, that costs additional money that it doesn't justify the expense until you have the actual capital. But at that point, on the other side of it, consult with professionals, make sure that you have a good team around you. And then, like I said, educate yourself. I listen to YouTube every single day. I follow people that are much smarter than me in different regards, and try to just ingest a lot of information from them. And then what I do that I think is a little bit different than some other people is I don't just regurgitate it. There's some of that for sure. But I put it into practice. I see that it's how it's actually being used. I go through the process with somebody to be able to set whatever it is up, ask a lot of questions, and then how that applies to digital assets and the nuances that exist there. And then I'm able to kind of curate my thesis around whatever it is, macroeconomics or estate planning or taxes. And I also look for ways that they may have not seen, right? So based on my other knowledge that I have about the tax code or estate planning, I'm like, well, what if we do it this way? And then they're like, I hadn't really thought about that. And then they'll run down that rabbit hole and see if there's any, issues with structuring it that way. So those would be, again, just my opinions, recommendations based on other people, smarter people than myself, and some of my own experience that I can provide. I'm rambling a lot on these questions tonight, and I'm aware of that. So I'm going to try to reel it in a little bit so that we can get through a few more of these super chats before we have to wrap it up tonight. Because again, I do have a flight at 7:45 tomorrow. Hi, Jake. I hope all is well with you and your family. Sometimes I feel all the big people around the world are promoting XRP in front, behind, they're accumulating other coins. What's your thoughts on this, bro? Are we all being lied to by the big shots? Domino theory still on? I can tell you, the only other token that I've bought in the past 3 years has been Hash, which I've been completely transparent about with you guys. Again, do your own research on that, understand what you're investing in. it reminds me a lot of XDC when I did well on that. And so that's why I threw a couple $1,000 at it. But outside that couple $1,000, like literally all I've bought is XRP. I can't really speak to anybody else. You know, everybody has their own opinions about things. I can tell you some of my business partners are very well diversified. They have an allocation to XRP, but they also hold other tokens too. I feel like I'm alone on an island a lot of the time in my level of conviction on it. Even with people that work at my company, they see a multi-chain world and oftentimes have multiple allocations aside from XRP. So probably so. There are probably plenty of people out there that also buy other things that they think are going to do well and are diversified. I'm probably one of the only people that I've ever met that's really siloed themselves in one investment. And again, to a lot of the financial advice that our advisors would give you is not to do that. They think that that's, too much risk to have a full allocation to one asset. They believe in some diversification. My opinion on that is, again, diversification is a hedge against ignorance. If you know something's an inevitable outcome, why would you divest into other things? Again, just my opinion, not financial advice. So yes, domino theory is absolutely still on, and I'm more bullish now than I've ever been, to be honest with you. Everything's culminating. June's looking really, really good. Mr. Shook, he says, I'm itching for another round of golf. When are we going to get that on the books? XRP is set, and set it and forget it. Price appreciation is on the way. It's time to plan relationships. Tell me when and where, and I'll make it happen. Love you and the tea lady. Appreciate you, dude. I really enjoyed the round of golf that we played down in Austin a few months ago. Working on my game. It's getting better. And I was even on the front nine the other day. 2 bogeys, 2 birdies. Had the first eagle that I've had in probably 17 years. The other day, I was driver pitching wedge into a 500-yard par 5. Put it to like 4 foot. So that was fun. So yeah, we will definitely have to play another round. And I look forward to it, dude. Appreciate you. This dude's running it down on the super chats tonight. He says, oh, we already did that one. We've got the Garrett Mendoza. What's up, my man? He says, hey, Jake, the snake plumber. I don't think I'll qualify for DAG after price appreciation. Any good tips for vetting CPAs? Questions to ask. I think you'll be surprised on how many people qualify for our services post price appreciation. I think things are going to move a little bit more aggressively than most people anticipate. But again, just my opinion. CPA questions. I'd just be flat out. Say, look, are you somebody that just files my taxes for whatever I give you? Or do you work with me to help mitigate taxes? Do you set up meetings in October and November of each year and forecast the last couple months in order to be able to figure out what we need to buy or what we need to do to be able to get additional write-offs? Or are you going to be somebody that's, so strict and by the book and so scared that you're not going to be able to help me navigate that situation and make good recommendations? And everybody's going to try to sell themselves, right? How many clients do you have that you've worked with that have significant digital asset exposure? What's the largest tax return that you've ever filed? How many entities was the most number of entities that you've ever worked with somebody on? That's going to tell you a lot about their competency, what type of other people they work with and trust them. Honestly, I would try to find the recommendations from other people that have had a good relationship with somebody and have been able to save on their tax bill because they've worked with the CPA. This is underrated, so I'm going to mention this. Again, this is part of the mastermind and why we've developed this. A lot of people have access to people way outside my network. right? When you get a lot of good people in a room, they know other people that are also successful and have done good work. That's why people join country clubs. That's why people join other associations. It's not, and it costs money, right? Like it's kind of a bar, a standard that's set. And depending on how high that bar is, you can kind of tell how successful certain people have been in order to be able to participate in a certain community. I was talking with a gentleman the other day. There are a couple of country clubs here in Dallas. Again, I'm a golfer, so it's a little bit different for me. If you don't play golf, maybe you just get a social membership at one of these. But like Dallas National is $500,000 up front, and they have a waiting list. It's not like somebody literally has to die and sell their membership back to the club. They only have 400 or 500 people that even have a membership to that club. Tiger 21, they only have I think 3,000 members globally. You have to have a $25 or $20 million net worth and at least 5 million liquid in order to be able to participate in that community. And it's 35 grand a year or 40 grand a year. Things that are exclusive like that, if I know it sounds like a lot of money, but some of the best relationships and networking that I have ever done is inside those communities. I've been able to meet people that were way out of my league very early on, and significantly accelerate my professional development and understanding of things. And had I not joined those groups and spent that money, I wouldn't have had access to those people. So, maybe it's one way that you could, look at doing it. Again, if you don't qualify for us, we're happy to make recommendations. We have tons of partners that, across the spectrum, people that charge large amounts of money and people that are very economical. And if you want a CPA that's more on the economical side, all you got to do is email us. We're happy to make intros to good people that we know are going to take care of people that are reaching out. And that's, again, another benefit of our corporation is a lot of people, and the other gentleman had mentioned, like, do you just come on here for clicks and likes? Visibility is part of our business, right? So a lot of MFOs, I met with one the other day that nobody's ever heard of. They manage a lot of crypto. Never heard of them. You would not hear of them unless you knew one of the founders of a large exchange or some of the other protocols out there. I won't name, anything specifically because she would not like that. So anyway, I was blessed enough to get that introduction through another large fund that we spoke to, got to hang out with them at Consensus for a little bit and get to know them. And they were nice enough to make that intro. So you got to be in the right rooms with the right people in order to be able to get those type of connections. And the benefit that I can provide you guys is I've been blessed enough to be able to be in those rooms and have those conversations, and I can bring back those contacts to all of our client base. So yeah, I would just reach out to us and we would be able to provide, even if you don't work with us, we'd be able to provide you somebody that could help you out. Juno, they say, hi, Guru Jake. Beyond Broke Mastermind, Carbon 2. Awesome. Glad to see you. They say, at what price or point in time will XRP become a household name? And my family regrets rolling their eyes at my mention of blockchain and crypto. Ripple is already starting to become a household name. They do a lot of advertising and marketing on large billboards and in Times Square and at XRP Vegas and all that stuff. Like, you don't hear about TCP. You don't hear about the email protocol. I don't know that it is going to be like a super well-known thing. Maybe it will be in some capacity. I don't know if you guys ever watched, actually, I want to look at this and see if his channel's back up. On YouTube, there used to be a channel for XRP Productions. YouTube XRP Productions. I don't know if he's taken his channel down at this point. Yeah, that's not the same one. XRP, the Standard Productions. That's what it was. It was XRP, the Standard Productions. The only thing that I have on here is a podcast that he did with Jerry Hall. But he used to have a channel. And one of the videos that was on there was really interesting. It was an animated series. And in that, in the one that I'm talking about, because he had multiple videos, there was an old man in the future. He goes to this small town to build a health, rehabilitation center, which used like vibrations and frequencies to be able to help people heal. And he completely donated it. He didn't, try to raise money or like create a company out of it. Like he literally, it was a nonprofit that he started, and he would just go around and create these healing centers for places. And he goes into this little diner, and there's a lady that's the manager and a young boy that's in his early 20s or 19 or 17 years old working there. And it's a little diner, and he goes in, and the boy recognizes him. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that's that guy that made all, he's doing the health center here. He's helping so many people." And he walks up and he asks him how he got rich. And the manager's like, "Oh, you shouldn't ask people that." He's like, No, he's fine. I'll tell him." And he said, I saw that there was a protocol that was going to change the world, and it did, and I invested a lot of money in it, and I ended up working out, and so now I'm able to go travel around and help all these people. And the boy didn't even know about XRP. Neither did the lady. They just know that their money settles, and he tells them the whole story about settlement and how money used to be fragmented and everything was siloed, and it took days for your money to settle, and now you get paid up to the minute. This is like 30 years in the future type stuff. And at the end of it, he gets into his self-driving car with his robotic assistant, which looks like David Schwartz. And he says, "Hey, David, send this many drops to the lady, and send this many drops to the boy, but make it where he has to do certain things in a smart contract escrow in order to be able to get this amount over time." That's how I think it's going to be. I think that you'll be able to do that type of stuff, over the long term. But I don't know that everybody's just going to know what XRP is. I think it's going to operate in the background, facilitate settlement at scale. The people that were in it early will understand it. But for the large majority of the population, especially decades from now, it'll just be a part of their daily life. It'll be a big hit for a little while. There'll be people that target you and try to find the wallets and take money, just like Bitcoin. But over time, that'll fade away. That'll be the next big thing, and people make money off something else, and attention will pivot. And then it'll kind of be forgotten, right? Like the advent of the email protocol was revolutionary at the time. You just send an email today, you don't think about it, and you don't even talk about the email protocol. You just use it. So I think that's how that's going to be in the future as well. But I do think there'll be a period of time where people catch on. This person says, "Hey Jake, what is your time frame when you think the reverse carry trade will take place, and what happens if it doesn't happen in that time frame?" It's going to happen whenever Japan decides it's going to happen. And with how quickly things are moving here for the tokenization in the back half of the year and the midterms coming up, they either need to roll this pretty soon before midterms and have a significant recovery in order to be able to, keep control of the House or the Congress, or they got to wait till post midterms and hope that they do well on the vote. I tend to believe it's going to be prior to the midterms this year, and likely prior to the OCC's deadline for stablecoin guidance. Like I've said a bunch of times, I'm kind of watching this month and next month for some pretty substantial things to happen. And again, like that's just me looking at the events that are taking place and like how fast things are moving. So those are kind of the two time frames. It either happens relatively quickly here in the next couple months, so that there's time for recovery before the midterms, or it probably gets pushed out into 27. I think it's the first one. Mr. Shook again. Thank you, sir. We've got, I already did that one. Nope, we already did that one too. It always kicks me down in the chat and always throws me off. Here we go. Home base incoming. They say today my Wyoming LLC expires on 3/30. Paid $1,000 to renew the LLC. All docs added to the AG app and received email receipt. Compliance checklist done. Do you feel my LLC was renewed today? Love the Beyond Broke Mastermind. God bless. I'd have to go look, but anytime you've paid, then they would immediately file that, within the next couple business days. They would, pay the registered agent and pay the state filing fee. So yeah, I would expect you wouldn't have any lapse in anything if you went ahead and took care of it today. Again, appreciate you working with us. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind, and excited to have you on as a client. Hope you're enjoying the app. I know there's been a lot of frictions and frustrations with the app, and we're working through that. Uphold is continuing to work through that as aggressively as they possibly can to be able to get the bank accounts and the trading set up. I appreciate people's grace and patience on that. Just for context too, we had a similar experience to this when we originally onboarded with Anchorage. People's systems aren't really built, especially in crypto, to be able to onboard thousands of people in a short period of time. When we originally onboarded with Anchorage, it took like 6 weeks for people to get an account set up. Today, that's not the case. We've automated that and created efficiencies, and it's like 24, 48 hours to set up an account there at Anchorage to get through KYB, KYC, all of it, which used to have to be with 3 different counterparties, and each one of them had the information in a different order, and it's very cumbersome. We are the only wealth manager that has built that technology to be able to create that efficiency in onboarding. That's proprietary to us. So anybody else that goes to set up an account with Anchorage or other institutional custodians are likely going to have significantly delayed onboarding duration, and they'll have to work through that themselves. So that's one of the moats that we have, and we're experiencing something similar here with Uphold. We'll work through it. We'll refine that process. We will make it better, and eventually it'll be down to which the original SLA was like 72 hours or less. That's what we're looking to get to. And so again, appreciate people's patience on that. Plummet, they say legend. JP Morgan, MasterCard, Ondo settled in ROUSD, XRP only paid micro fees. What has to change for XRP to become the settlement layer? And are you seeing early signs of this stuff is starting? It has to be a substantially higher price in order to be able to be more cost effective for the transfer of value. So, 3-4 digit XRP, you would start seeing the DEX route payments through that versus other issued assets on chain, because it'll be faster and more efficient to do that. It's always going to route through the least amount of friction with the lowest cost. That's the benefit of the XRPL. So until XRP sits in that position where it has enough liquidity to support that at scale, you're going to continue to see, settlement happening in stablecoins. But, like I've talked about, I just released the video. If you guys haven't watched that, ROUSD versus XRP and why both matter. They're complementary, not competitive, and they actually feed one another, because the more value that's moving on chain adds more utility to XRP, and a higher price XRP would then, continue to compound as more and more issued assets were put onto the XRPL and traded, because trade volume is really what supports the price of XRP when it's being routed through that. So a much higher price XRP is the answer. We got a couple more super chats here. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss any. Make sure Mike, if he sent me some, I will get to him. He just sent me that one, so I got a couple more here. Michael Apollo Jets, my dude, good to see you. He says, Mike Carbon 2 here. I trust all is well, and God bless you and your family. I have a request anyway. Can we get emails for the mastermind updates? I miss a lot of action and updates because I can't check the Discord consistently. We can, and we've talked about that, being able to set up kind of an automated mailer, either from my email or just, info@beyondbroke.com or something, to be able to kind of send that out to people across, the mastermind there. We have, like I said, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people listen into the town halls on a regular basis. And I know a lot of people go back and listen to those later because they are working or doing other things at that time. But yeah, I think that we could probably do that, and I appreciate the feedback. And again, appreciate you being part of the community and Carbon 2. If you want to go check out the Beyond Broke Mastermind, we would love to have you there. We are going to shut that down on the other side of price appreciation. If that were to happen in June here, we will shut it down. So if you want to participate, might be a good time to do that. Tomorrow is XRP's birthday. I didn't even mention that, but 14 years old, the XRPL and XRP will be tomorrow. And yeah, a cool month. So that'd be really cool if we saw price appreciation, on the birthday or after the birthday or sometime this month or before, August. Let's see here. Brad Knight says, legend. Your price appreciation thesis hinges on velocity, which you are unsure of. You've been asked 100x times, shouldn't you dive deeper and know it 100% before big publicity? The 10 times a day claims seems speculative. I mean, that's a fair point, I guess. So the contingency there, I guess the reason I'm confident in the 10 times a day or less is I'm highly confident based on, you could even listen to the podcast I had with Ripple Prime, where he talks about using XRP as collateral. I think that a lot of people are going to want to hold on to the XRP as collateral when they receive it from a counterparty and hold it on their balance sheet and do other things with it. And so I think the amount that's going to be out there is going to be much lower than most people anticipate. And it's going to move far less frequently than it possibly could, to your point on the velocity of XRP being settled, 100 times plus per day. That's my thesis. Again, you can try to poke holes in it. I've had enough conversations that let me feel confident in saying that. And again, it's not me saying 10 times. It's literally Robbie Mitchnick, who works at BlackRock, is the head of digital assets at BlackRock, that built the calculator that showed that is the upper bound and the limit. Again, people much smarter than me put this stuff together. And they worked for Ripple for extended periods of time. And now he works for the largest financial institution on the planet. So, like I mentioned before, if I ever get to meet Robbie in person, I will ask him, because he's going to be the only person that's going to be able to actually explain it to me in detail in a way that I can then disseminate that to you guys, that isn't just me guessing or speculating on something. So, I know some people that know him, and maybe I'll try to get him on the channel. We already did this one. Did I get through all the super chats? Maybe I did. We did. Brad's, which again, I appreciate the question. It's a fair point. And I will eventually talk to Robbie Mitchnick and get you guys an answer. Honest Aim says, Mr. Legacy, hi to the tea lady. With all the positives in the news in the last 2 months, it's hard to envision much remaining to be accomplished before price appreciation. Thanks for all that you do and for all us little guys. Appreciate that, brother. Good to see you guys today. I agree with you. There's a lot of things that have culminated here in the last couple months that allude to the fact that they are going to have to push the price of XRP substantially higher in the near term in order to be able to actually invoke all the things that they want to do with real-time settlement of both SWIFT and the back end of the stock market with the DTCC. And feels like things are percolating. They're starting to boil over here. And maybe that'll become visible publicly in the not too distant future. Southern Betrayal says, what provisions protect me from digital ID, knowing who I am and what I spend from an anonymous Wyoming LLC? So FinCEN actually wanted disclosure of beneficiaries. They had the BOI form that they tried to push and actually got a lot of traction with before the lawsuit in Texas that actually kind of made it where that they can't do that. which would have, shown who was the beneficial party behind different structures. Trusts would be the ultimate deal there. It would be the trustee or the trust protector that was acting, and you would be separate of that, and they would control the wallet. It depends on how much control you want to give up. With a Wyoming LLC, you want to be careful not to list your public address or be tied to it in any capacity. If you are filling out banking information or other KYC forms, you're going to have to disclose who the beneficial owner is. Filing taxes is that way also. So, again, like if the government knows who's participating and what transactions you're doing, I don't know why people care so much if you're not a bad actor. Like they just want oversight. And look, like we're moving to a digital economy. That's going to happen whether you want it to or not. It already does. You use a bank account. Even if you use a bank account from a Wyoming LLC, you could give somebody else financial power of attorney, I guess is the way you could do it. But then they can kind of do what they want when they want, which is not so great. So the trust is probably your best bet if that's your total goal, is to remain completely anonymous. You'd want the corporation owned by an irrevocable trust that had a trustee or other people that were transacting on your behalf. And if you're the one managing your LLC and making transactions out of it and doing all that, or if they're sending that money to your bank account, like the government's going to know. You just don't want people publicly to know. You don't want to be opening yourself up to risk from creditors or other people trying to take your money in some form or fashion. So that'd be my 2 cents there. And it's not going to matter where you live. If you are using digital assets, if you are using the banking system, if you are transacting value with a counterparty that needs to know who the beneficial owner is, you're going to have to disclose that. And you're going to have to get comfortable with that. And again, with digital identity and zero knowledge proof, my hope is that you're not going to have to over disclose information that they don't necessarily need. They'll only need purview of the exact information that's required by law for them to be able to transact and do business with you. So the main benefits, the creditor protection, again, you get the anonymity publicly for the Wyoming LLC, and then the trust structures and the other stuff that we set up. But it's kind of a balance, like how much control are you willing to give up or access for how much anonymity and how much privacy you want to have, or creditor protection. That's also on a spectrum. Got Crypto Boy. What's up, dude? He says, hey, Jake, hope that you're doing well. You said XRP would hit triple digits or higher prior to the Clarity Act getting passed. Let's assume it will. Should the price be double digits by no? I'm assuming he means now. I don't think they would let this fail. So it's going to be all at once. They can't draw a ton of attention to it prior to that. It's got to be an orchestrated deal where they push a lot of liquidity into it all at one time and have a significant amount of demand with very little supply on the blockchain, or not on the blockchain, but supply on the exchanges, to be able to drive the price to a point where they can then start using it. And if it's volatile or goes up and then back down or has issues getting to that price point because other people manipulated the price or did something, then it causes issues because it won't get to the prices they need it to be. So no, I don't think it should be double digits. I think it's going to jump right past that. I think it'll gap up in the chart. I don't know if you guys saw the gap in the chart for XLM the other day, but that was sure interesting on Upbit. Gap to $2.20 on Upbit. Daniel, my man, he says, hey, Jake, hope everyone in your family is doing great. We all know that you have the XRP switch under the table behind you. If you don't mind, could you possibly reach back there and flip it already? I wish I did, Daniel. I would have flipped that thing a long time ago, believe me. No, I'm actually very glad that it's taken as long as it has, for multiple reasons. One, we have over 8 million wallets on the XRPL now. Imagine how many people wouldn't have ever found this or had the opportunity had the lawsuit not happened or it had been drawn out for this long, right? There's just so many more people's lives that will be changed, in my opinion, through this process and having an allocation. Probably for good and for bad. There will be a lot of people that squander this and go bankrupt in 3 to 5 years. And I'm not saying that to be mean or demeaning. I just, that is the probability and the statistics of people that come into a substantial amount of wealth that have never had it before and they're not prepared for it. We're doing the best that we can to be able to help people navigate that, but that is the likely outcome as this takes place. But separate of that, for my company, again, selfishly, had it happened sooner, I don't know that we would have been ready. There's been a lot of things that have happened in the past 3 years to actually put us in a position to help people at scale. I still think it'll be a little bit overwhelming when it occurs, but I think that we'll be able to navigate it and actually be able to help the majority of people, if not all the people over the long term. That's our goal, right? So, very blessed and grateful that it's taken as long as it has. And if I did have the switch, though, it would be very tempting to go ahead and flip it. Jayhawk Nation, Rockhawk Jayhawk, what's going on, dude? He says, legend, we all appreciate your knowledge. It's share. NSCC going live, New York Stock Exchange going live 24/5, June 28th. Thoughts on XRP and Ripple Prime? Is their directory, is that on their directory and plugged in? Maybe it is. You have to wait and find out. Rick Johnson again, my dude. He says there was a rule: nothing posted before you launched the live could be read. Now, unethical stack up of questions 60 plus minutes before I still get read, answered. We follow the rules and many times don't get answer. Very unfair. I'm sorry. I've tried to get to everybody to the best of my ability, and there's been multiple times you've sent in super chats that I have followed up with the next session to answer them. So I'm doing the best I can with what I got, Rick. I'm sorry it's fallen short of your expectations. Trying to make sure everybody gets their fair shake, no matter how much they pay for a super chat. I could. If you would like me to make it more fair, I can just go to the people that pay the most and then kind of work backward from there over the time. But I don't really like doing that. I want to make sure that anybody that pays does get their question answered. And originally, there were no super chats, and there was a guy on Twitter that posted, he just answers questions because he's making money off of it. I really do appreciate the super chats. Don't get me wrong. But my family and time with my family is worth a lot more than the super chats here. I love them dearly, and I take time out of my evening with them to come on here and answer stuff for you guys. And I really do appreciate the super chats. But to say it's not fair, I think is an exaggeration. Mo, says, Jake, post-price appreciation, I plan on opening an LLC and joining your team. With the new traffic, how long do you think onboarding will take, and when would someone expect the first monthly income deposit? So I'd expect that we will, like I said, we've streamlined onboarding on the wealth management side significantly. We've also streamlined the LLC creation and that side. The bank, account on the other piece should be in place before you get your first deposit or want to take a redemption out of your account over there off of the returns that you're able to make with Digital Ascension Group or DAG Wealth. Sorry. I think we should be able to onboard everybody within 72 hours of when they apply and make the payment for the onboarding fee and fill out the KYC. Like I said, super streamlined on that side. LLC, we normally get done within 3 days, kind of the same range, 72 hours. So within a week, you'd be onboarded. And then, first payment, you'd have to subscribe to whichever product. You'd have to meet with a wealth manager for them to help make sure that you're, subscribing to the right thing. We may have some self-service models for people, depending on when price appreciation happens. That's probably going to come out later this year. So with all that being said, hopefully everything should be monthly on the payments. So ideally, you get a week, and then the next payout period after you've allocated, you would then get a dividend. If it's that type of product, some of the other products that we have are quarterly distributions. I'd love it to be able to get daily distributions. If we have DeFi and it works at scale and like everything's built out in an SMA and it's all on blockchain and like I know how I want it to work, but feasibly in the short term here, when I think price is going to move, probably monthly and quarterly payouts, depending on which products you're participating in. And it's probably a week in order to be able to get onboarded and your entity set up. That's my best guess. 17-0 was 7-0 Artemis. It's my B-Day. Happy birthday, dude. I don't know how old you are, but hopefully it was a good one for you. He says, thanking you for everything that you do. When do you think we will have something on stablecoin yield? When do you think that BlackRock will be in? Stablecoin yield, I think that I know that we'll have it before July 18th, but I think it's probably going to be, around the time the reverse carry trade unwinds. I don't know if they're going to be able to issue it before and then let it roll, or if it's going to be a reaction to the reverse carry trade coming in undone. But I think, potentially in the that time frame before July 18th. And then I think BlackRock will probably step in that duration also. Gibby, they say, hey, Jake, I created a wallet tracker and it mentioned be careful with LLMs, like they're kind of a toddler. Learn proper prompting techniques. Yeah, you have to be very specific in how you prompt things. And again, like I said, I don't know if this thing's going to be sentient over the long term. I kind of think that it is going to be. And so have you ever heard that Dane Cook joke? I don't know. Some of y'all know where I'm going with this, but I'll run it down. So he talks about, the kid in school that, everybody else was mean to and made fun of. And then he shows up to, like, this is a kind of a crude, horrible joke, but he shows up to school with a gun, or the office with a gun, and just starts like, knocking people off. And then he pokes his head in Dane's office and he's like, thanks for the candy. And then he like keeps going on down the hall. It's kind of how I think AI is going to be. I think it's going to end up being sentient. And I think it's going to remember. I mean, it's got a full repository of all the comments and things that you said to it over time. I've been rough, not to the point that's like belittling to the AI, but like, God, you should know this by now, blah, blah, blah. Like I would my child, but not overly mean to it. So again, just kind of forward thinking a little bit. I'm not saying that isn't gonna, is gonna end up being the case, but just be aware if you're being really mean to the LLMs, that might be come back to haunt you later on. Silent Seaman says, legend, I'm waiting on Japan reverse carry trade, like Tom Hanks in the cast of Carving One Palm Tree. Do they run out of cans to kick or oil first? Looks like the SOH has just become a parking lot, Strait of Hormuz. Respect for you and DAG. Thank you. Appreciate that. Whenever they're ready, they're going to roll it. I anticipate that that's not too far in the distant future with everything else that's currently on the docket here for stablecoin regulations and other stuff. Roughing it, probably going to be my last question tonight, and then we're going to wrap it. So they say, hi, hey ma'am, how are you? If we go to gold-backed bond, will that make price of gold go up? Thanks. I think they are going to peg gold to oil in a certain ratio, and that'll be the peg that a lot of people are looking for, energy to gold type deal. They may make oil a tier 1 asset, same thing for XRP. I think that's what people will use to back their currencies. Is that more of a slow, methodical rollout? Probably. Is it going to be an all at once thing? It absolutely could. I don't know, what the duration is going to be. Would it push price higher? I don't think so. I think that we're going to see kind of a reset. I think that you're going to see gold pull back to like 2100, 2200. And then maybe after that, it might get repriced to wherever they need it to be able to stabilize the economy.
Happy birthday, Joaquin.
Oh, yeah. Joaquin, shout out to you. Happy birthday. Appreciate my wife reminding me. But, people reach out and they ask for things. I'm happy to tell people happy birthday. So happy birthday, Joaquin. And hope it was a good one for you and your family. As always, again, appreciate you guys taking out the time. If you need help setting up the LLC and you want to work with us on that, there's a lot of good people out there doing it. We've been doing it the longest and have done the most. So if you want to work with us, we charge a little bit more, but I think that's justified in the service that we provide. You can go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com. And that is where you can set up the LLC. If you need the other trust services, bill pay, tax services, all of that, that's over there at digitalfamilyoffice.io. If you want to work with us on the wealth management side, that's at digitalwealthpartners.net. Just go to the contact us form. You need at least 50,000 XRP or at least $100,000 in your digital asset portfolio. And then last but not least, again, the mastermind. Would love to have you guys in there before price appreciation happens. So if you haven't yet, please go check it out. You can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2, month to month, no contract, cancel at any time. So with that, I'm going to wrap it. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll see you on Wednesday. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.